on 2017, I want to say, or 2018. And it was created by our CEO and CTO, which is Samyak and Some Jian. They actually are also brothers. And at the time, if you're in open finance OG and you were able to use Maker way back in the day, it was a very complicated multi-step process. I believe it was like 20 or so odd transactions. And it was just not very usable for most people. And so Instadapp, for their contest submission, created Instadapp. And what it did was, I mean, now it seems so simple, but back then it was like, oh my God. It just allowed you to generate debt from a Maker vault in one click, which, again, now seems very standard, but at the time it was quite wild to combine all these different transactions into just one simple transaction.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to mention that's probably one of the things that most users probably absolutely love, like this notion that you could just save on gas costs. Let's focus a little bit on that. So, from my understanding about the application, you can pretty much shortcut different types of whether it's loans or trades or whatnot simply by like almost like a one click or one type of transaction. Could you take us into that? I hope I explained it properly, and if I didn't, maybe you can expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, so essentially the way it works is so Instadapp is kind of almost like a contract wrapper. So we're able to wrap different functions of different contracts, and then we kind of like are able to stack them together. So this goes back to like the Lego reference. And so for a lot of things, we're just able to do it much more efficiently. And then you add that, and then you add flash loans on top of that, and then that's when like things kind of get super powered. Because now you're able to move, let's say, your debt from one protocol to another. Because that's actually the most difficult part is just having that additional asset because so many of these lending protocols are over collateralized. So flash loans plus this modularity with the functions is what kind of gives us like the superpowers to execute a lot of what we're doing.
Right. So just to give some of the people in the audience like a typical example, let's just say I've got a loan with Aave and I want to sort of flash that into Compound. How easy is it for me to do that using Instadapp?
Yeah, so let's just to make it super simple. Let's say you had like a 5 Ethereum position and you had borrowed 3,000 DAI against it. And for whatever reason, the interest kind of went against you. So maybe you were paying 10 and it went to 15. And then you're looking, so you're on Aave and you're looking over at Compound, and Compound's interest rate is 8%. Now, a lot of what we do, you could do it yourself. It's just, it takes a lot of steps, right? You would have to pull out the Ethereum, convert that back to DAI, then pay that DAI back. So what we do is we leverage flash loans to essentially move all of that done through in one transaction. Actually, I feel like I should explain flash loans because not everyone may understand what that is.
Yeah, it's always a good idea to just explain it out, just in case we have some newcomers here that are not aware of it. But for sure, go for it.
Yeah, so flash loans, it's a little complicated, but this is the best sort of example that I can think of is it's a loan that you pay back in the same transaction. And this is extremely powerful because so many protocols are over collateralized. So where you would have to withdraw that Ethereum and pay back that DAI, withdraw that Ethereum again, pay back that DAI. I mean, you're already doing like 4 transactions and you haven't even left the Aave protocol yet. So we're able to do that all by using a flash loan. So the flash loan would go ahead and borrow, the 5,000 DAI and just pay the entire debt for you, and then move your collateral over to the new protocol, and then withdraw that new debt, and then pay back that flash loan. And then again, this happens in one transaction.
And I'm going to go out and say that these types of transactions, I'm assuming, are probably more expensive than what most newcomers are used to, but there's a lot of gas savings involved. Is that fair to say?
Yes. So I would say it's multiple things. One, there's definitely gas savings because there's several transactions that just have like a base fee where you can kind of skip around that. And because we're using a flash loan, instead of doing multiple repays, we would just do one repay. So there's lots of gas savings on that end. I think also it's the simplicity that is really what gets users. It's just very cumbersome to do a lot of these things. And also you have to think like you're going from one interface to another. Sometimes you're going from different terminology. That's one that trips people out a lot. So being able to do this in one interface with one click is extremely beneficial. And then again, the access to the flash loans really opens up what you're even able to do. So we can talk about a couple of other things you can do, such as like collateral swapping. So if you go back to that same position where you had 5 ETH and a 3,000 DAI, you could go ahead and just switch the asset. Let's say I don't want to hold Ether right now. I'd rather switch and hold Bitcoin. So we're able to accomplish that, which again, you could do it yourself, but it's quite cumbersome. You'd have to close your position and reopen it and trade. And again, we're going to do all of that for you in one transaction.
Seth, maybe for some of the newcomers, you can talk a little bit about what sort of security or audit practices are required to run an app that sort of sits on these money Legos.
So there's different security things kind of going on. So one, the way that your wallet interacts with the DeFi Smart account is in itself kind of like one layer of protection. So when you're giving permissions to these contracts, you're actually not giving permissions to your direct wallet. And maybe I'll just go back. So anytime you use Instadapp, you're asked to create what we call a DeFi Smart account, and this is the smart contract, that wallet that powers kind of all this other functionality. And there's essentially a security function within that, just the way that that's built. And then the way that interacts with other contracts is quite limited. So it's generally very safe, but you're still subject to the vulnerabilities of like the underlying protocol. That's always possible. So let's say if there was some type of, I'll give you an example that happened. Let's say like there was some particular gamified hacking that happened with Compound. That occurred on the protocol, and that affected everyone that was using Compound, including our DeFi Smart accounts. And then for the auditing, there's different levels. So there's our contracts that get audited, and then we also look at other integrations and what security audits they've reviewed and done. But again, because there's a little bit of a barrier between, we don't necessarily integrate their entire contract. We integrate particular functions of their contracts. So that also limits a little bit of how it interacts. And again, it limits how it interacts with your personal EOA address, because you're acting through a proxy, which is this DeFi Smart account.
Right. Guys, as we continue on the conversation, I just want to mention that some of the questions I'm asking may be obvious to many, but since we are joined by so many new people here, I just want to make sure that they get a good understanding of both the projects at hand here. So you mentioned that users would go ahead and create this sort of new wallet within the Instadapp. Explain to us where the funds are sitting at all times. So like if someone's using a hard wallet with MetaMask, are they sending their funds to this newly created wallet? Or like how to explain to us what this wallet is actually doing within Instadapp?
Sorry, I just want to jump in there quickly. Sorry, Seb. Whipper, I think your questions are not that simple. For someone like myself, it's all very useful and it's all very valuable. So I appreciate what you're saying, Seb. And good questions, Whipper.
Thanks, Josh.
So essentially I guess I'll go back. So we have different types of accounts on Ethereum. So we have what we like to call EOA, which are externally owned accounts. And that's the key pair. That's what, the main address that you generate with like your ledger or any other private key or mnemonic phrase combo. And then we're kind of closer into the realm of like the Argent smart contract wallet, Gnosis, where we're using these secondary smart contract addresses that act as wallets. And then you're able to add additional functionality to that and make it more, I almost want to say more expressive, but that's kind of true. It makes it more functional than what your normal singularly owned account is. And so when it comes to who owns the account, that's a very interesting question too. So when you generate the account, your initial account would become the owner, right, of this newly created, you can almost think of it as like a proxy kind of wallet. And then you can actually add other users to that account and potentially even add different kinds of levels or permissions to access that account. So it's very extensible and kind of acts almost like a multi-sig.
And if users wanted to see some of these transactions or tokens or whatnot in their MetaMask wallet, for example. Like, just to throw a parallel example. So like if you deposit into Aave, you get like AETH or whatever. Within this account, could users see what they're holding within MetaMask?
Yeah, so it acts like a normal address. So you could just look it up on any block explorer, or if you use an account explorer, it's even better. So you would be able to see. So you can put it into Zapper or Zerion, for example, and it looks just like any other wallet. And again, this would be similar to any kind of smart wallet. Like if you'd had a Gnosis address or an Argent address, these wallets will read. These addresses will read like wallets.
Right. Perfect. And so let's talk a little bit more about the different opportunities that are available through using Instadapp. So you can lend, you can borrow, you could flash loans. Could you swap things like LP positions from maybe one AMM to another? Have you guys thought about integrating different L2s? Could you go from an L1 to an L2? What sort of things? What sort of powerful features, aside from what we've been talking about so far, can you utilize through Instadapp?
So there are lots of things that are possible that we haven't quite done yet, but the infrastructure is there. But let's talk about things we have done. So we've launched on Polygon. That's our only kind of iteration right now. And what we were able to do was to do a cross-chain DApp migration. So we were able to bring your Aave V2 position that's on Ethereum and bring that all the way over to an Aave Polygon market. So that is super cool.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's actually really cool.
And we are hoping to continue to build those types of kind of cross-chain liquidity sources and refinance use cases because we think that's very, very powerful, and there's going to be a lot of room for that. We've also done we've expanded on, this may seem minor now, but for me, it was kind of big. We expanded how you refinance with Maker Vaults. Maker Vaults work a little differently. So you can actually refinance your Maker Vault or split it or change the collateral asset or move the debt around. And then I think what's kind of on the horizon is a lot of features that are enabled through our change of governance and the update on our contracts. So, for example, we're looking at making DeFi limit orders. So being able to use your balance on a protocol and create a position against other balances in other protocols. Maybe, I don't know if I should expand on that a little bit. It might be a little complicated.
Yeah, for sure. If you could, please.
So let's say this is more useful for, I guess it depends on the circumstance, but let's say you have you're farming comp, right? And so you have this extremely leveraged dollar position. So you have USDC and above DAI. And again, you're mostly farming comp and stable asset pair, so it's not a huge deal. But there are deviations in the dollar price. So there's ways for you to potentially earn additional returns by being able to trade that active balance. So let's say if you had an active balance on Compound, maybe we could refinance you into an Aave position, and then you can set, using something like Gelato, you can set a particular price. So you would automate a price order on top of your DeFi position.
Man, I love this. This is freaking amazing. I love the functionality that's available. It just sounds so simplistic. I know that you guys have a token available. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that, how it integrates into your system.
Yeah, so the Instadapp token currently is mostly a governance token. And what we did was we transferred all of the ownership of our accounts over to the governance contract. So now all future upgrades and any kind of code level changes has to occur through governance. And then we foresee potentially some other kind of perhaps revenue, perhaps some other staking type features being built as well. But again, that's something that our community is currently in discussion. So there's no guarantees what we'll do, but we definitely do generate fees.
Is there a revenue source for token holders? Like, are there fees on top of, like, we didn't speak about any fees on top of any of the swaps for using the Instadapp. And if there are any fees, what are they? What should users expect when using the platform?
Yeah, so right now there's very minimal fees. There's some 0.2% on a few of the features that require flash loans. We've had the feature on at other times, and then we took it off right before governance. So right now there's only a fee. I believe it's just on refinancing between protocols. There's a small fee, and then also for the cross chain, there's a small fee as well. But for a lot of the other stuff, there's no fee. But we do foresee potentially putting a fee on some of these functionalities over time.
I'd love to sort of explore the notion of, so a lot of, obviously this is an 88 MPH community call, and I think that users would love to have the functionality to just jump in and out of different positions on 88 MPH. Could you sort of fictitiously walk us through like a example of what that would look like for some users here going into or looking to get into different positions while using 88 MPH?
Ooh, I like this example. This is great. So let's say if we had, in this alternative universe, we have 88 MPH contracts fully integrated into Instadapp. So what are the kind of features you would see? So there would be lots of strategies around, let's say when you open your first, I'm a little off on your terminology, so please correct me if I'm off. But let's say you create that first initial deposit, and then you're going to get your 88 rewards. We could do that in one transaction where those 88 rewards are either immediately put into the staking contract so you can earn something, or you might be able to switch across your deposits, although it will depend on some other features based on like if you have O tokens or if you're using, if you guys are still using ERC 721s for positions. But we can essentially automate switching between positions and potentially automate like the claiming features and having that claim potentially go back to, well, I guess it depends. I guess I have to understand a little bit more about your newer token features because I'm more familiar with your older model.
McFly, maybe you want to jump in here for a quick sec. I mean, obviously, we do have our V3 coming down the pipeline soon enough. We will talk about news and updates in a little bit, but maybe this is a great chance for us to discuss what that would look like with an integration with Instadapp, or how you would love to see that sort of look.
Yep, sure. I think the first use case will be to help different users directly open a deposit via Instadapp on 88 MPH. It could be some Zap features or stuff like that that help someone to be onboarded as a depositor on 88 MPH. They use Instadapp, I suppose, like a hub to manage their different position. So they can open a deposit with, let's say, they have USDT, but 88 MPH doesn't support yet USDT. So we are helping them to swap that in DAI, and after under the hood, we deposit that directly into the DAI pool, earning some fixed yield on this DAI. And I suppose we can maybe further develop some use cases regarding the way they can manage directly their MPH rewards from Instadapp and stake them directly from Instadapp into 88 MPH staking pool to get some revenue from that. Except from we are cooking 88 MPH V3, as I was mentioning that on our chat group, and we will have a staking program where it's similar to what is doing Sushi. For example, you stake Sushi, you get X Sushi, so MPH will do the same. You stake MPH and you will get some X MPH. I suppose like the way I see Instadapp since the beginning is really something where you simplify the step-by-step process for everyone. So you automated a lot of things, and the user experience is kind of streamlined. So yeah, it's probably what I see as the first use cases and the way we can be plugged directly into Instadapp. But correct me if I'm wrong, Seb.
No, that all sounds great. The other thing I was also thinking about is refinancing. So being able to take your position from Compound and bring it into 88, and other sort of other abilities to kind of bridge over from other protocols and get more exposure.
Yeah, it's really really good idea. In 88 MPH V3, we are replacing the current floating rate bonds. We are naming them yield token. And basically, this yield token, what it allows our users is to open a position and being long on the market rate that we have on Compound or Aave, the lending protocol we are using under the hood. But it's also a good instrument to hedge your borrowing cost. For example, you are borrowing DAI on Compound. So it helps you hedge your cost and kind of reduce the burden you can have when you borrow DAI on Compound by buying this yield token, allowing you to kind of hedge this borrowing cost. So it could be something where if Instadapp detect that someone is using the DAI pool on Compound to borrow some stuff, there could be some notification popping where they say, "Oh, you are borrowing that DAI on Compound. Hedge your cost of borrowing by using the yield token of 88 MPH." So yeah, I'm not sure if it's something that is really possible to trigger directly into Instadapp, but it will be really cool.
Yeah, so we are working on adding more of these external kind of triggers and automations. I actually think that's I think that's kind of like the next big thing is going to be automations and this sort of hands-off approach. So we often work with Gelato to do a lot of that. Actually, the automation is very important as well when we do things like cross-migration, because we have to make sure that certain prices match, and we have to time out how certain things move.
Seb, do you guys have incentive programs in place to, I mean, obviously, look, you don't really have to sell this. This is amazing. It sells itself. What could be better than just the ease of just a couple of clicks and you've done what you needed to do? But I'm just curious if you guys have any, whether it's staking, liquidity mining program, something. I mean, look, there's a small fee that users have to pay. Obviously, it's very worth it. But I was just curious if you guys had any incentives to get more adoption with Instadapp right now.
Yeah, so we are kind of taking a multi-pronged approach. So the first thing we have, and I'll say this first because we were talking about Gelato. So we have staking, and it's quite different because what we're staking is a G-Uni token, which is it's essentially like a pool of Uniswap V3 positions that are automated by Gelato. So Gelato moves along a curve to sort of move the liquidity to where exactly the market needs to be. So quite kind of experimental and kind of interesting for us. So if you would like to provide liquidity, you can through these staking incentives, and the APR is quite high right now. We have that program going on until about the end of. Actually, it's going to be ending in the next couple of weeks, but we are looking to extend it. I already have a proposal in governance. And then the other incentive we have is kind of it's kind of like volume mining. It's a liquidity mining program based on having a DeFi balance. So if you right now, let's say you have a Maker vault and you're not doing anything with it, you could bring that into Instadapp, and weekly we're offering some rewards on just having a balance with us, and we're probably going to extend that as well for probably another 3 months. And then going forward, we are looking to potentially build other interesting partnerships, ecosystems, and other ways to encourage development on Instadapp through some type of maybe developer farming or protocol exchange, so that's still kind of in the works, but that's where we see our token going.
Seb, I just want to clarify because you mentioned bring your Maker sort of position with us, with Instadapp. I don't know, are you familiar with B protocol by any chance? And And if you are, like, when you say bring it over, would that mean that you guys would be handling any liquidations, or is your maker vault still yours? But explain what you just meant by bring it over.
Yeah, because that's a good question. So essentially, so when you create a maker vault, it's owned by your address. So if you're using this proxy wallet, it would be owned by that proxy wallet's address. And that wallet is a non-custodial wallet, so we don't have any control over that wallet. Just so you know. So, and that's part of the fee that it costs when you create your account. You're generating your own account. So if you were to bring it over, that would be migrating your vault position into this Instadapp account that is uniquely yours. So then B protocol actually is integrated into Instadapp. We have to spend some time building out some functions for that. But if you were to bring your maker position, you're still directly interacting with the maker protocol, just with its other address. So there wouldn't be necessarily liquidation coverage in that case. We have done, as an experiment, we did kind of a liquidation coverage for ETH vaults using Gelato. And what we did in that case was we refinanced for you. So if the price was to crash, we moved you from Maker, which has a pretty high collateral ratio, to a pretty low collateral ratio, we brought you to Aave usually, which had a much higher collateral ratio, just to prevent your liquidation from happening. And then now that B protocol is on Instadapp, what we could be building their sort of overlay protection on top of your maker position.
Wow, this sounds really cool. I was curious if you could just name a few big projects that you guys are sort of built on top, and then maybe you could talk a little bit about what projects sort of need to do to get vetted in order for Instadapp to sort of plug into them.
Cool, yeah. So the main sort of protocols that we're built on are Maker, Compound, and now I would say Aave and Uniswap. I mean, those four kind of create the foundation for a lot of what we do. And those also are kind of like the most trusted sort of lending platforms at the moment. And then you said in terms of how someone would be kind of onboarded onto Instadapp.
Yeah.
So this part is the part that I'm really excited to talk about. Okay, so right now, what you would have to do is, so we have these things called connectors. They essentially act as like an adapter for contracts. So an external project would come in and format their contract to these adapters. You can kind of think of them as almost like wrappers to functions. So we wrap the functions of these other contracts. And then our team would review them, make sure that they are correct, that they function properly. And then governance can go ahead and add them to the protocol. And so adding them to the protocol, I do want to explain this kind of tiered. So when something's added to the protocol, it's accessible by any account. So like, let's say if you wanted to do something let's say you wanted to do something that Instadapp doesn't actually do right now, like doesn't do it in terms of the interface. Like let's say you wanted to access Curve. Well, we have Curve in the protocol. You can access it, but you'd have to write that transaction yourself. My goal kind of now is to streamline and open up the integration process so we can have more protocols get on board. And what we're doing in the next week or so is launching an alternative dashboard for Instadapp. And we're going to encourage sort of anyone in our community, different projects, to build on that without having the team be quite as involved. So that's this new. So essentially, all you need to do is make sure that your contracts are safe, audited, structured to our format, and then get it through our governance, and then you're on. And then now you have this new place that we're building where we're going to encourage a lot of experimentation and kind of provide tools for people to start building out these use cases.
You mentioned Uniswap. I was curious which other big AMMs were sort of on the roadmap to be integrated next. And then with that, I'm assuming once they are, users could pretty much switch from different LP positions. For example, if Balancer is paying out a really high yield on, Bitcoin Ether pair, you could switch from Uniswap into that back and forth type thing.
Yeah, so well, when I mentioned Uniswap there, I meant more in terms of like our Uniswap V3 staking pool and how we've used Uniswap V2 in the past. In terms of the swaps on the app, it's actually we primarily use 1inch, so it would access all the liquidity sources, all the DEXs. Anytime you do a swap, that would include anytime you do these leverage, refinance transactions. It's going to use 1inch to find the best price for you. I feel like you mentioned something that I might be missing.
Oh, I was talking like if like you're in an LP position, for example, in Uniswap, and you wanted to switch out of Uniswap and be in the exact same LP position but in Balancer, be able to do that no problem.
So that's possible. We had some of that with Uni V2 before we launched, so we would have to kind of rebuild some of those additional, like we'd have to kind of rework some of that. And we do plan on having those types of features. Probably hopefully by the end of this year, to have more LP providing apps.
That's awesome. What sort of milestones have you guys surpassed that are worthwhile mentioning to everyone listening with us today?
Wow, so many. Well, right now we've been bouncing around from top 5 to top 2 DeFi app by total assets locked. So we've been at 10 billion about this week. So having 10 billion in our contracts is crazy. Sounds wild when only a couple years ago we had 50 million. This is amazing, and now we have this. That's crazy.
It's so nice to see the absolute explosive growth in the DeFi space in general. And yeah, I wanted you to mention that 10 billion mark because I think that's important for people to hear.
And then I think the other thing that's really cool is, I mean, the way we've used flash loans is really it's just amazing. Like we have constituted at times like 70% of the flash loan volume of all of DeFi. I think we've done over 12 billion in flash loan swaps. So we really have been pushing that as a use case, and I think that we've kind of pioneered okay, flash loans work. There's so many things you can do on it. Of course, there's lots of people that have been working on it, but we were kind of one of the first back in the day, way back in the day when DAI was called Psi. We really experimented with flash loans as a way of getting people over to the next to the DAI upgrade and allowing people to keep their maker vaults.
Seb, as a user myself, I absolutely see all the benefits of using flash loans, but I have to ask because people are curious and it's been brought up before. Most of the hacks within DeFi, a lot of them use flash loans. What's your sort of opinion on flash loans in general? Obviously, they brought a lot of benefits to DeFi in general, but do you see what do you feel about a lot of the downsides that are sort of happening with hacks or whatnot? What's your take on that?
So I'm gonna say that I personally waver on this. I've gone back and forth. I mean, obviously, I see that there's lots of good. What I waver on is in terms of, for example, with governance, right? Governance is very tricky, particularly when there are tokens that have value. And borrow these governance tokens, and potentially try to execute some kind of attack. So things like that are quite scary. I mean, I feel most protocols have taken a good care of that. And then again, I go back and forth, just because a flash loan occurs, these protocols shouldn't be weak enough to crumble to a flash loan attack, because essentially a flash loan anyone could technically do it. It just makes it easier for someone to do. They don't require capital, but essentially that's like a capital attack, and a capital attack is a capital attack no matter if it's done with a flash loan or not. But I do understand that there is definitely this increased attack vector because flash loans are so accessible. But at the same vein, I also feel it's something flash loans is something so novel and so different. It's it doesn't exist in the finance world. It's extremely powerful for what we're doing, especially with the ethos of over collateralization. Flash loans are almost necessary if we're going to continue with that as with most assets being over collateralized in terms of stable coins and.
I like what you said, and I think I agree with you. A little flash loan shouldn't break a system. It should have the proper security guards in place, and I agree with you. I think that the benefits outweigh the disadvantages of them. But I really just wanted to bring it out because I know that there are some people that have different opinions about it on different sides of the debate there. Maybe you could share maybe we could talk a little bit about the roadmap of Instadapp. What sort of news do you have, if anything, or anything worthwhile to share about some exciting stuff that's coming down the roadmap, down the pipeline?
Yeah, so right now, what I'm most excited about is open source dashboard. I think that is going to really, I think we're going to see some really cool experimentation and new use cases. And it kind of lowers the barrier. So I'm also excited to see how projects get on there. And so that is kind of one thing that I think is very exciting. And then also for us, expanding the authority aspect of our contracts. So right now, you can add a user to your account, but that user will act. So if you wanted to use it almost as a multi-sig, kind of like you'd have to use it yourself in a very controlled way. But in the future, we're going to be able to allow managers. So you can authorize an account that can only trade for you, for example. And then I think, okay, well, what if you have someone like Bjorn comes in and they want to access lots of liquidity on all these accounts and trade, let's say, what if they trade on all of our accounts? Anyone that opts in will put their idle assets to make them accessible for a protocol. So there's a lot of very big ideas that can kind of expand from the authority concept and the way you're able to tier off and separate access to assets on the DeFi Smart account. So I'm very, very excited about seeing where that goes. And then of course more classic stuff like social recovery and Guardian and maybe some type of switch. Like if you lose your account, doesn't have any actions, it'll add an authority for you. You have like some other wallet to refer it by. So there's a lot of really interesting use case on the permission side.
I love it. Sounds super exciting. And we're obviously looking forward to the day that 88 MPH integrates with Instadapp. I want to switch gears here for a second and bring McFly on. We just want to talk about, before we get into our Q&A section, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what's sort of happening here at 88, any updates that you want to share with our audience today. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about V3.
Yep. Just before that, I will need your help, Josh, with the port stuff because I think I messed up something. Just that part.
Yeah, no problem. I'll manually distribute afterwards.
Cool. So yeah, regarding the progress so far this week, we got the last meeting with Trader Bits last Friday. They told us we need to fix some issues, so the firm is working on that this week. We plan to send everything for Friday for review. So we will have, as far as I understood from Trader Bits, another week of review from this Friday. So after that, we will be good to go, but it will depend the review from Trader Bits, and when they are confident that we can publish the final report, we will be good to go on mainnet. But I know it's painful, but I can say like an exact day because it doesn't depend entirely on us. But we are super close. So, and the good news is that there is no unsurmountable issues to fix, so it's really mainly small issues. So it will be quick, but that's the thing. So basically, right now, what we are doing while we wait for this Trader Bit things, we polish the front end. We published last week a new front end with a lot of updates according to the user feedback we got. We met with 19 different persons. We did a lot of user interviews for hours, listening to people, what they think, what we can do differently. So it was, really, really helpful. We did a lot of updates regarding that. We added the features where people can The users will be able to customize the metadata directly in the UI. They won't need to deal with any JSON files or stuff like that. So it will be fairly more simple to do customization, like personalizing the name of your deposit, adding an image to your deposit. Plenty of things that could be a next step regarding the things we are doing with the NFT, merging creative content with DeFi NFT. We are currently working with 3 different artists to create collection for 88MPH. The collection will be mainly for doing airdrops or incentivizing different use cases for the launch of V3. We are working with Visual Dawn, the guy who is doing a lot of DeLorean things. We are working with Man with No Name, who was doing stuff for us back in December, January, and also Wakami, who is more into the vaporwave and retro style, but is doing cool stuff on Instadapp, and indeed the zero coupon bond NFT we had back in February or March. The thing with this NFT things is not to. Since the beginning, we are doing NFT stuff, so it's not like for riding the wave of what's currently happening on the NFT space, but it's for opening and trying to build bridges with NFT communities, and especially with community of artists that can open really a wider audience for 88MPH, but without going into all the bullshit we can see right now. It's really boring, from my opinion at least. So yeah, trying to bring back some added value into all these NFT things happening right now. And, making DeFi NFT really a reality, and not just for in-game assets, but just for if you have like some creative content you like, you can plug that into a deposit, and that's it. And after you can do whatever you want with it. So it's there is a pretty cool use case with that. And we will see is experimental feature. We are not focusing all of our energy on that. But that's fun to do. So we wanted to build it, and that's it.
Thanks for that, McFly. We do have some time left on the call, so I'd like to invite the audience, if they have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to raise your hand so we can bring you up on stage. As we usually do here towards the end of the call, we have our raffle, but I would like to continue the conversation since we still have some time left. But as I said, please feel free to raise your hand so I can bring you up. Seb, while we have you with us, there's been so much chatter around regulation recently. I just wanted to get your personal opinion with regards to everything that's happening in the US and regulation. Does this faze you at all? Do you care? Do you not care? What's your sort of take on this? Do you brush it off? What do you think?
That's really funny because I have a little bit of a legal background. I think
that's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, again, like I only worked at JC for this stuff, so not this particular of law, but I think decentralization is going to be the key for a lot of projects. That's why I'm very excited and very happy that decentralized. I think we're seeing that. I mean, again, the problem with the American system is that they kind of go back and forth, and we don't really know exactly what's going on. But I think utility tokens and things of like governance tokens, as long as they're sufficiently decentralized, I think they'll be okay. But we'll never really know. You know, there's not enough clarity what these assets are, and there's no concept.
From your legal understanding, though, like if you were based out of the US, would Instadapp that sits on top of these other money Legos be responsible for what they're asking these projects or these quote unquote brokers to do? with regards to their requirements to file. How would Instadapp sort of fit in that situation?
The way it was currently written, it would include Instadapp. What's complicated or confusing or what's not clear is how does that work when you generate a non-custodial smart contract wallet that has in some ways it has, I don't want to say it has nothing to do with us, but you don't need us, right? You don't need our website, you don't need people. It's on chain and you're interacting mostly with decentralized protocols that are also efficiently kind of unstoppable. So that's where it gets very confusing. The way it's written would apply to everyone, but again, there's no distinguish between what do wallets have to report, like centralized smart contract wallets. The way it's written is everything would have to report, including smart contracts of any kind, including ones that have no ownership. So it's very, yes, it's very broad. It would include everything, the way it was written.
And in your opinion, how far-reaching is the U.S. government in terms of its stretch to other countries, other projects, other developers? I know that this is specific to the U.S., but do you think, and this is very broad-based, but do you think that anyone within the industry should be worried at all? I'll just give an example. We've seen the likes of BitMEX, which was based out of Seychelles, come under U.S. scrutiny. How far-reaching should people within this space be concerned?
So again, I just wanted to say, not legal advice.
I know this is all opinionated.
No, yeah. So I think we kind of don't fully know how the SEC will act with all these things. I do think that that's the thing. It's changing because it's political. It seemed to be that projects that were trying to do it right were kind of given the pass to and given space to get it right. BitMEX was not that case. BitMEX was avoiding authority, so they wanted to get them. So that's different. But it's still very confusing, who they go after and times. So we don't really know what they're gonna do. I do think that projects that are clearly scams and don't have any development behind it, don't really code is copied. I think we'll see eventually some sort of narrowing down on something that essentially separates, hey, this is an illegitimate project. Now, will they get that right? I don't. They might just say, oh, well, Uniswap, because it doesn't have enough XYZ. We don't know what the ultimate. So it's still in the air.
Yeah. Everyone who's with us in the audience, we do have about 5 minutes remaining on the call, so now's your chance to ask any questions that you might have before we get into our raffle.
I have a question.
Jeff, go ahead, Josh.
Sure. Whilst we have Seb here with his legal background, and he's so willing to talk about it, a lot of people are concerned about the ICO. If there's an ICO, then it's considered a security. Gary Gensler, I think, said this. So there's all kinds of and the ruling just recently that just went through, things are kind of touch and go. Nothing's really confirmed and everything's subject to change. But the one thing that I've heard kind of people concerned of in general is if you're going to consider an ICO, for example, or any other issue, and you're going to consider it security and tax it accordingly, what separates Ethereum? And for me, Ethereum is separated because of the fact it's an application layer, right? But does that have any legal binding? Does that have any legal weight at all? The fact that it's an application layer.
So I'd have to do more research on how they do things, but I believe that they don't look at that. It looks like they're really looking at was there money exchanged when the token was created? Seems like that's one of it. And then is the token sufficient? Who do we go to? Whose door do we knock on to stop this? And again, I look towards how he talks a lot about decentralization keys. I think she's right, because I think that being sufficiently decentralized is what's going to make it kind of I don't want to say difficult to control, but essentially it changes it, kind of moves it realm. The tricky thing, I think, when it comes to Ethereum had a sale, and a lot of these other like layer one application had sales. How much time do these projects have to decentralize? Do they have to decentralize right away? And how decentralized? And those are things we don't know.
Yeah, good points. Good points. A great question, Josh. So true. I feel like we all wonder. I guess Ethereum got a pass in a way, and we'll see how the regulations sort of, how things turn out in a little bit. With that, if anyone else has any questions, now's the time. Please feel free to jump in. We'd love to hear from you guys.
In the meantime, I'm just going to jump in again. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying, especially about the whose door do you knock on. That's an interesting one. One thing that kind of does concern me is that some people. Okay, so we're in DeFi at the moment because of a couple reasons, but the tech, the economic incentive, and the ideology really is kind of like the principal things. But the majority of people don't care about the tech or care about the ideology. They care about the money and the use case of it and how convenient crypto can be for P2P transfers. But they don't care that it's decentralized, right? A lot of people don't. So how do you hold on? This is just a general question, but how do you hold on to the decentralized aspect of crypto? Because blockchain can be utilized by, IBM has a blockchain and it's convenient and it will probably be used for CBDC purposes. But how does the crypto space hold on to the decentralized kind of ideology and keep pushing that through?
Yeah, that's a very interesting kind of philosophical question. So the decentralization, it's very interesting. So we look at things like Binance Smart Chain, amount of volume we look at Binance Smart, amount of volume people. Basically, you're going to say, well, people don't care about these, and what you hear people say is you don't care about these until you care about it, right? So we haven't seen any, sort of seizures or rollbacks or any of these things happen, but there might be a day. And I think also when it comes to regulation, the more centralized the chain is, I think they're going to be more regulated as well. And again, it's not to say that these people want to be unregulated, but if there was let's say there was some type of regulation, things like flash loan, these other concepts that these regulators don't really understand, so they oftentimes fit these boxes that they know. And so I think decentralization is going to be really important, not only for continual growth space, but for the evolution, things to continue evolving. But again, that's my opinion. I'm a very decentralized first kind of user. But again, I also understand that Ethereum's expensive and other there's going to be levels to these, and other solutions will work for. But I always like having a base layer that I trust that is finality, and I think Ethereum is going to be that layer for a long time.
For sure. I think we have the same kind of wants out of the space. It's really interesting you said about the decentralized. I can't remember the word you used, but the innovation. There's something I hadn't really thought about. Most of the innovation that's happening is happening so well because it is decentralized. It's people in their houses or in their groups coding and making some great products. I suppose when it becomes centralized and it becomes a corporate thing, then the innovation will definitely slow. And yeah, that's a really interesting point I hadn't thought of.
And I guess just to add on to that, it's also interesting a lot about culture and the ethos. That's extremely important in this. Everyone in the space is constantly borrowing, building off of each other, and there's never, not never, but there's often people don't say they don't care, but hey, you can build something on top of something that I built. It benefits both of them. And I think what DAOs are also, we can have a different conversation on DAOs, but it is really reorganizing structure ourselves, and it's changing people's concepts. So not to say that people don't want to make profits, but profits are shared and just way. And again, I think a lot of that comes from centralized and from this different ethos, a different culture cultivated for quite a long time.
Yeah, you're so right about the culture. Every time I try to explain to my kind of, quote unquote normie friends about certain things in crypto, they just get bogged down by the tech and the monetary aspect of it. And I say to them, what you don't understand is that there is such a huge culture around crypto. I mean, it's the meme culture, it's the the whatever culture, but it's so huge in crypto. You go and you have to be kind of linked into it to get the full benefit of what's happening in crypto. You can just look at our Discord, like all these great emojis everywhere. Everything just looks nice. Everything looks aesthetic. And I just think that's for me, that's the most unexpected thing about crypto for lots of people who aren't in space now is the culture and just how much kind of fun there is to be had in an economic space like this.
Just, I guess, last thing I'll jump in. Something that I think is really interesting and very cool about this space is like the art. And you guys were mentioning yourselves, you guys have a very clear artistic vision in the way you design. And there's like this resurgence of art. Like people are spending money on art now, which is very cool. And it's not just, the master, but it's like, it's this cat lady and this other meme and this other random person. But people are actually making like some decent income. And so that's totally like changing the game. And you look at things like Rarible and how profits are being shared with the creators. So there's a lot of really interesting space for art in this decentralized finance world.
So true, so true. Seb, in under 60 seconds before we close off, what's got you super stoked and super excited within DeFi coming within the next 6 to 12 months? What are you so crazy excited about?
I guess, I'll give you two. So, I mean, I think ETH2 is going to be great. I think ETH2 is going to be really, really exciting. I know it's just a process. Once we just get to that, once it's happened, I think it's going to be very, very exciting. And then on the Instadapp realm, I'm going to double down on the authorities. You could see some very interesting, hyper capital efficient model where the Instadapp accounts are generating interest off of, just having a balance and being utilized across the so some big there. So those are the things that have me excited.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, folks, we're going to head over to the Raffle section of the call. I invite everyone that's listening within the audience to head over to our general channel within the Discord server. Please go ahead and enter a number once only between 1 and 50. And the person who either gets it or gets closest to will win today's prize, which is $100 worth of an MPH token, which is essentially a stable-backed coin, which is 1-to-1 to US dollar. So please feel free to drop that in the general chat. Hey, Josh, did you drop me the number?
I dropped one. If you want to use
you did it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and just for your information, guys, we launched that in partnership with the Ichi protocol a few days ago. So if you are the winner of this 101 MPH worth $100, you will be able to stake them on ichi.org. There is currently an incentives program there where you can get Ichi rewards. And we will develop more use cases with the 1 MPH. We will try to get it listed on some lending protocol and open a fixed yield pool on 88 MPH in the following months. So yeah, stay tuned for 1 MPH. Yeah, it's an experiment, but yeah, we have fun doing this kind of things also. So while we wait these V3 things, yeah. It's a side thing for 88 MPH.
Yeah, and I just want to give a shout out to Sarcastic Inside. You are the winner today. Thank you for coming out and joining us. Thanks to everyone who came out and joined us today. We hope you enjoyed just as much as we did to learn about Instadapp, 88 MPH. We hope that you will stay tuned with all of the latest developments that are happening, both with Instadapp and 88 MPH. And don't forget to continuously join us here weekly in the convention center of the Discord server at 88 MPH. We want to wish everyone a wonderful day and thank everyone for coming out.
Just a last quick comment. if you are, who was it that won? Sarcastic Inside. You can feel free to shout out MPH and Ichi on Twitter if you win, because you won. And also, if you want a POAP, because we have a POAP bot that should automatically distribute, but we haven't managed to set that up. We've had a few issues. So if you just drop a comment in the general chat sometime in the next like 5 minutes, then it will make it easier for us to track who's in this call. I have made a screenshot, but new people have joined. So if you want the POAP, there are 50 available. Please drop a little message in the general chat now. And thank you, Seb, for coming.
Thank you guys. This was super fun. And forward.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Seb for coming in. And yeah, we will try to distribute this POAP as soon as possible. Messing up a bit with the setup, but we'll do better next time.
Thanks, everyone. And with that, feel free to stick around, but this is an official close. Wishing everyone a lovely day.